Hey everybody, welcome back or welcome if you're new to the RKH podcast. I am so excited for today's episode. I have one of my besties, Brittany Keysmat
Hey,
here. Hey girl, thank you for being here. Hey Luna.
thank you. I know Luna's here too. Thanks.
I'm so stoked to have you here and just to talk about life, spirituality, make jokes,
Yes,
probably make fun of
only
our
joke.
own traumas. Yeah. Before we start, I am Rami, or the RKH. You're a psychic healer and lawyer. And getting back into the spiritual series that, I've always been working on, but I took a little bit of a break or tangent to talk about narcissism. We'll probably end up covering that in today's episode. We've dealt with that in many forms in our lives as
Hmm.
well, but you guys are going to get to see the real me today as I joke around with my bestie. So, Brittany, maybe I should have asked you this before, but what do you want my engagers to know about what you do? I don't want to give away any information that maybe you don't want to
No, yeah.
share.
Yeah, my name is Brittany Keysmat. I'm a crisis responder for Six Nations. I am part Haudenosaunee, Dutch, English mix. And yeah, I don't know. I was living the 3D mostly, and I'm trying to get into more of my spiritual side. Because it's hard to balance the two, right? So it's like you're trying to shed all the programming that you thought you had, right? And
Hmm.
now, yeah, now I don't know what else to say about me. I'm not good at introducing myself, but
No, I think that was great. And that was something I really did want to touch on today, actually. So maybe we're just going to dive right into it.
yeah,
When I
let's go.
met, okay, actually, let's start about how we met. Okay. So I want to give my perspective on that quickly. And for those watching, it's going to be a lot of like flow and back and forth, and hopefully there's no echo. Anyways, we're gonna work with what we got. Okay, tangent as usual. I swear we recorded a podcast before. Did we just not upload it, or did we
I
not do that?
I think we did a long time ago. Was it in your apartment?
Yeah, like we were sitting on the couch. I swear we did that,
Yes.
right? And then when I was going on my episodes, like going down the list of my episodes, I didn't see it. Like maybe I just didn't upload it. I could have felt too vulnerable. That was, whoa, I was about to say my twin's name. We're there. We're there where I don't give a shit to protect his identity anymore. Sorry, buddy, if you're listening to this. But I think maybe I just felt really vulnerable in sharing, even though it was anonymous or it could have been a quality thing. But this is our first one. Okay, so that was that tangent. Because I wanted to link that. Be like, oh, this is a podcast we did like 4 years
Well,
ago. So the year was 2017 when I met Brittany. I was not in a good space mentally because I was looking for articling, which is your kind of like invocation to get called to the bar. You're interning or whatever. And I had been looking for a while. I started to give up and was applying to random jobs like Cactus Club and things that I thought would make me happy. And then I came across the job at NYX, NYX Makeup, through Tui, who's my friend, one of the owners of Beauty and Co. Artistry, saying, "Hey, like I know the manager there, and you want to apply?" And like I was really into makeup and stuff, and got that job, and was happy to do it. And then we opened the Burnaby location, and then moved on to Robson. And a couple of months later, we had heard that there was a transferee coming in, and me being me, I I don't know if
and
this
you
is
reached out to me. You reached
yeah.
out to me before I got there,
I
dude.
did, and I'm like, was that manipulative of me? Because I wanted you to be in my corner. But really, like, there was a lot of clickiness at that branch, right? I think there is in that sort of industry anyway.
Yes,
But I
naturally.
mean, we're still friends with all those, like a lot of the individuals, or like we still kind of know them through socials, I think. At least I
Yeah.
do. And so I wanted you to also have the right crew to get involved with. Sorry, guys, if you guys are listening to this. But anyways, I reached out to you just because I genuinely wanted you to be comfortable. And yeah, we met.
And I
And
remember I appreciated that because I was coming from Ontario to BC. I had no friends. I was moving there because of a man. Oh, shocking. So, like I was just so happy to already have a friend that I could go to because it was scary.
mhm, exactly. And like We really hit it off. Honestly, I remember the first day you walking in, and I think it's great for people to know how we met, but hindsight and generally talking about manifesting and divine timing, had I got articles when I really wanted to get articles, you wouldn't be in my life.
Yeah.
Wham!
No, for
Like
real.
there would be no me meeting Brittany. Like I don't know where I would have met you. I don't go to Holt Renfrew, which is where you went after. I
Hmm.
wouldn't have met you at the Tom Ford counter.
Yeah.
Maybe I would have met you at Nick's, but it wouldn't have been like a friendship that formed and a bond that formed. So I'm really grateful for that and for the timing and how it all worked out.
I'm really grateful too. And it really puts into perspective how every single decision, big or small, you make, the connections you can meet out of that bigger picture, it can be pretty overwhelming when you think about it that way. But it's
Hmm.
also it's so beautiful because there's so many different realities that you have access to. Like
Yeah,
it that's why your little and big decisions do matter.
yeah,
Not to overthink it, but just to trust the process because I was obviously meant to meet you, right? So it's like
100%.
the people that you're meant to align with, right? You're guided to make the decisions to meet the people that are supposed to be there for you. And I would feel lost without you, right?
Oh,
Like
same.
yeah,
Without
going
you,
through,
not without myself, I think I could
yeah,
do without being in my own head.
yeah,
Yeah.
because the transitions are so real when you're conscious and then when you decide to go into maybe a more unconscious experience because you have to learn the lessons as a human being here. So you have to go into those certain like pitfalls to experience what you have to experience, but then to come out and like your friends still be there so you can debrief and be like, holy fuck, look what I just went through. Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting now to see. I mean, we kind of talked about this, not surface level, but we didn't talk about it with this lens when we just saw each other a couple months ago, which was great. When we saw each other, that our unconscious paths like took us off track from one another completely. Like we were not really in each other's existence, which for gosh, I'm gonna get him, which for me really sucked. Oh God,
Yeah.
right? Woo! And so it was just like weird, right? How that diversion happens. Like when we first met in 2017, I was 4 months ago, like 4 months away from starting my divorce process, first time,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
You were there throughout all of that. And also what's crazy is like I was there for, of course, your breakup. And then
Breakups.
breakups, yes,
Breakups.
breakups. True, true, true. Because yeah, because the second part I was gonna add to that was you got to be a part of my experience in getting called to the bar, like a
Yeah.
significant part of that experience. And I remember you running in to Joe Forte's after you got off at Hole, and like we just had such a good time. We went out and just again, just about how you were meant to be a part of that merging in that experience, even though maybe I willed and wished that my timing would have been different. It all played a significant role in where I'm at now. And now, yeah, now that we're back on our path of consciousness and a way of understanding our patterns and not choosing ourselves and being people pleasers and allowing narcissists
Yeah.
to ruin and rule our lives, I think we're back on track
Yes.
with that accountability for the long haul versus being ashamed of it too.
Mhm.
Because that was a huge part for me was like being ashamed of what I was tolerating
Mhm.
in my life, as well as carrying the shame of like, fuck, am I gonna go through a second divorce? Right. So I started to tell people, right? I started to be more open rather than like, hey, I've already made this decision. It was like, I'm thinking of making this decision because this is what's happening, right? This is what I'm
Mhm.
allowing, really. I have to take accountability for it. Like, not what's
Yeah.
happening to me is why it's happening to me because I allowed it.
And it's also asking yourself the question finally, like, how many times am I going to disempower myself?
Yeah.
How many times am I going to give my power away to someone else based on the like unconscious programming I have towards like, I want this, I want this, I want this. Like, we constantly search for the person to insert in that role that we were programmed to want to have. So I want a husband, so I have to find someone to insert into that role.
Hmm.
And it's like, but then you're giving your power away.
Yeah. Like, really, like, we don't need a man.
We don't. It
And
would
that's
like
not
it,
that. Yeah, it's not from a place of not wanting partnership. I
yeah,
100% want that, and I will have that again, right?
yeah,
In the way that I seek. I think that's important in the way that I seek, not in the way that's been programmed or
Yes,
the
that's
abuse
it.
that we've internalized growing up or through our past experiences that have now become a part of what we want to fix in another person. Like we're just not there anymore.
Yeah, and also like I think we got into that because mind you, you went into the relationship with a narcissist or a toxic person, and I ended up going to my dad's house who is a narcissist slash toxic person. So we both experienced that same
Yeah.
dynamic,
Yeah.
and then it's just like, but you recognize that you go for partners that are familiar to you. So
100%.
if you've experienced a toxic partner, or if you've experienced a toxic father or mother, right? And then when you want a relationship, it's familiar to you. So you're like, yeah, I'm going to do it because this is what love feels like. This is what love feels like. But then we had to go through those experiences to come into awareness that this is just familiar. This is actually not healthy.
Yeah.
And now that I'm aware of it, I don't have to dabble in it. Like how many more people have come after spending time with my dad? There's been a few toxic men, right, trying to come in.
Yeah.
And I'm aware now because I'm like, oh, do I want to dabble in that cycle again?
Gosh. Yeah.
Do I want to do that? And the answer is no, because that's the last time I was going to do that. I've
Yeah.
laid it to rest. That's what the age of Capricorn and the structures and the hierarchy and the power, all of that, I'm like laying, it's rest in peace, man. I'm never
Rest
going
in
back.
peace.
Yeah, I'm never going back to that cycle again because
No.
we've experienced all sides of that
Yeah.
dynamic now. So now
Yeah.
we don't need to experience any other perception of it. We can see it
It's
and
a
we don't.
choice, right? Like
Yes.
we're not making that choice anymore. I've had some
No.
experiences like that as well this year, just in interaction with men that perhaps were interested in me. Like you're out in a social setting and like the way in which they spoke to me, like in the past, I probably would have tried to assure who I am. But I was observing, like, you actually just said that out loud. You just met me. Like, you just said that out loud, and like, I was able to laugh about it. Where in the past, I would have been like, oh my God, like, that's not who I am. Why does this person think I'm too confident? Like, whatever it is. And I mean, I had those 6 years basically in between, 5 years, whatever it was, to really hone in on my confidence, minus my twin situation. That is just an aside. Um,
The
had the
biggest.
co- had the confidence, but like working through the patterns and the dynamic. I mean, that was the whole purpose. But yeah, it then becomes a choice for us to embark on that. And for me, what I've really had to allow now, what I feel really integrating in my body, I was talking about on my story yesterday. I don't know if you saw, but like being in my feminine. So I'm like,
Mhm.
shit, what does that mean? Because of course, a part of that is you still want to have the assurance on your distorted feminine side of like, okay, I'm going to be in my divine feminine. I'm going to have allowing. I'm going to be okay with this. I'm going to be in receiving mode. I'm going to allow myself to be taken care of. And then you're thinking about all the ways in which you may not. And
Yes.
that's like a really tough struggle to actually truly embody what you know you need to have in order to achieve what you want.
Hmm.
Especially when you've been traumatized or you've been put in that situation of like, for me, it was like I was pushed to be in my feminine in a way. I was not. I was like in survival mode, but I was convinced that allowing myself to be provided for in certain ways was something that I should do. And then I did it. And then what happened? There was a laundry list of all these things that I I got threatened around. This
Yeah.
is what I did for you. This is what. So it's really hard to then open up again to be like, okay, well, what I thought in that moment was I'm allowing myself to be my feminine. I'm allowing myself to receive help. I'm allowing myself to ask for help. I'm allowing myself to be taken care of in certain ways. And then a couple of months later, all those things are being thrown in your face,
Hmm.
right? So I know for a lot of women, that's a difficult one. And that's where the resilience gets to be really tough. But one thing I try to teach my clients, I try to teach myself, I try to speak about or whatever practice in this instance is um, having faith in the growth version of yourself. having faith that they're going to make better decisions. So worst case scenario, if that red flag occurs, you walk away. You don't try to fix the situation, right? Because that's just how it becomes worse and worse and worse. Um, and then the second part is your perception of yourself inside out. What are
Yeah.
you getting mirrored back to you? Are you willing to take your value and self-esteem and make a more empowered decision, or are you going to allow this individual or individuals to shift your perspective of yourself? And I think when you get kind of caught in that cycle, especially when there's that, like for you, you're talking about your dad, right? There's that trauma bond already that's decades old.
Yeah.
There's so much more that's involved with wanting to maintain that relationship.
Yeah. There's so much in that what you said, what even when your experience was talking to someone and you're like, wow, did you say that out loud? And sometimes we have to really just be aware that like other people are still living in like the old programming. So that does fly with a lot of people, but to us it doesn't.
Oh
And
yeah.
you're like, and right? And so um yeah, it's just but then another thing too, okay, if you feel that there is something like off about someone and you just can't put your finger on it,
Mm.
girl, it's a no. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's a no. It's
Exit
not
stage right.
it's not a let's do a couple dates and find out. I'm gonna give this man more time. Like, I think like following your gut from the beginning stage, if there's just something, and listen, like you do not have to have a reason
Mm-mm.
why. You do
No.
not have, because I think we often gaslight ourselves out of our intuition or our knowing. It's like in our heart of hearts, we know that this is a no, but then our mind kicks in based on our programming and it's like, oh, like, maybe I should just do it. He seems like a good guy. Like, no,
What
just
if it doesn't come around again?
that's the scarcity mindset, right? What if there's no one else like him? He checks like 8 out of my 10 boxes, which is also expectation. Like shred that because, they're not like one person isn't going to check all your boxes. I think it's how the person makes you feel. If the person makes you feel like not very good, just don't do it.
Like I always tell my clients as well, like value is different than compromise. What are
Mhm.
your non-negotiables? Like what is going to absolutely crush you, right? And then what are the things that you can compromise on? Lifestyle is a confusing one because you want to ensure that you're not dimming your light or dimming your um, experiences in this world to ensure that your partner feels good or safe, or maybe they're going to dilute you. That's not fun. Like you don't want to be someone that loves travel and loves these experiences and loves art, and then you're with somebody that doesn't like all those things. I can say confidently that I really went back on my values both times. I Second time maybe not as much, but it was there, and I'm not going to really speak on which one it was. Oh, I guess I can kind of. What the fuck do I care? Okay, so my point being that I needed someone that. Okay, I was very strict in those 5 years
Yeah.
of choosing an individual that had a similar educational experience to me,
Hmm.
because that ended up being both times the thing that they tried to use against me.
Right.
You guys know I have a good relationship with my first ex. I don't really talk too much about that, right? I also don't feel I need to stay quiet about the gaslighting that went on or the emotional abuse that went on. We were able to maintain a style of friendship, right? Because that's great. Wish them well, always do.
Yeah.
But I ended up saying, okay, well, how much of a value is this? Because if somebody is successful in their own way or has created something in their own way with hard work, I can overlook the fact that you don't have that on paper, right? And so it was just a little bit hard for me to do that, but I decided to do that. I thought that, and I'm happy I did. But again, when somebody over time, when you start to continue to expand or excel, or they start to see your your own value, how people value you, your morals and ethics. For me as a lawyer, that's huge,
Mhm.
right? And when you start to maybe question their perception of themselves or their perception of what they think is tolerable, that always got flipped back at me. And then it became dangerous because the threats to my career started to happen.
And because he knew that
Oh
that's your
yeah.
number one, right? Like that's
Yeah.
your
Like you're gonna threaten to do illegal things in order to give me anxiety. That's really fucked up.
Mhm. And that's control. He was just trying to control you
Yeah,
100% in that way.
100%. Yeah, like if you speak up about this, I will like, or that was the thing. It's like you're being vocal about how I'm disrespecting you. So if I really wanted to fuck shit up, I could just go do this. Like what? Like that's not a relationship. Right
Mhm.
now, when I look back, I'm like, no, like it's not even funny, right? I don't care whether or not it's a joke. I don't care whether or not it's um, the truth or even a legitimate thought. The fact that it came out of your mouth is disgusting. Like it doesn't matter who it is, friends, family, whatever. But a lot of that dismantling is happening. We know the fall of the patriarchy. We are, and
Yeah, and it is happening a lot more. Like I work in crisis and there's a lot of domestic violence going on right now. We're having calls of women being like, I don't know where to go, who to turn, and it's happening a lot more. So I already knew about 8 months ago that this was going to start happening,
yeah,
and it's going to start happening more. And that's why it's just like I just want women to reach out and talk about it to literally anyone because listen, men do it in the most insidious of ways too, right? Some men aren't so vocal and violent. Some play the very silent, long game of torment that you won't even have evidence for, right? So,
exactly.
yeah, which is really scary.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the gaslighting comes in, or that's where like the psychological, emotional stuff is what we've been programmed to just accept, even though it
Or
can be
the
more damaging.
Yeah, and the antagonizing, the antagonizing in public places, waiting for you to snap, just so everyone else can see that, oh, you're the crazy one. You're the
Hmm.
one, even though they've been slowly antagonizing you behind the scenes for like weeks and months, right?
Dude, that was happening at my own wedding and reception.
Yeah,
And so
that's
when
a real thing.
people like hear that, they're like, "What?" I'm like, "You have no idea how much I was keeping it together when
Hmm.
I wanted to lose my shit." Like it was like an out of body experience
Yeah.
being threatened at your own wedding,
And
right?
then they put it in such a way where then you feel gaslit by everyone else because everyone's like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? I don't see any sign of him doing this. Like,
Oh no,
and then it's an isolation tactic because then it just isolates you from all your friends and family because they don't really believe you.
100%. Yeah, and so much more to come on that when I talk about my full story.
Yeah,
Not for
yeah.
my friends and family per se. Everybody believed me, but the way that I was treated after. But let's divert. It's funny. We just kind of, I mean, we talked a lot about what we want to talk about, but one question I had was, because of course, what led you back to Ontario, originally being from there, having come here to BC and then going back, was wanting to get back to your roots in a way. If I
Yeah.
misspeak, please correct me. I don't mean
No.
to, but I guess how I see it and from what I've heard you vocalize is like growing up till maybe, the years, a couple of years that you moved there, you didn't have as much of a connection to your indigenous roots.
Mhm.
And then, you moved on to the res and you've been exploring that and you've been unpacking a lot of things and of course healing a lot of things and now we're working in that space.
Mhm.
What's been the most surprising thing for you in anything really? I mean, there's so much involved in what you're doing. I just kind of want to give you the space to talk about like what's been the most eye-opening experience for you integrating that into your life now.
Yeah, I think that the main thing that was surprising to me is how much I've already been doing it, of how much I've already
Yeah.
been doing and like using the medicines and using energy to kind of, you know, navigate, but also help people. Like I'm really good at empathizing and feeling other people's energy. So it's really easy for me to build a connection right off the bat. So crisis work has been really good because I am able to build a connection very fast and de-escalate very
Right.
fast, right? But in that, I had a lot to learn, right? I don't know a lot of things. So I tried to make connections with some of my family, but mind you, the family dynamics are always really hard.
Hmm.
Like, because if I can speak honestly, I'm a lot Caucasian, right? And my appearance. So
Yeah.
it's there is it's hard because a lot of people will accept you and a lot of people won't. And it's just actually not taking things personally because it is a result of colonialism. And I have to just walk with my heart. And I've done a lot of proving that I'm not like my dad, which is unfortunate, but that's actually one thing I had to do. A lot of people didn't want really anything to do with me because of who my dad is.
Hmm.
So I had to pave my own way, which has been really hard. Honestly, living and working on Six Nations has been the most heartbreaking for me, but also it's transformed me into a way better person. And I've done a lot of grief groups. I have a lot of mentors who I never thought would be my mentor.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for them because they've really helped me and believed in me because they saw me and they saw my ability to do what I can do. So that was really great. And I reconnected with my auntie who I was so grateful to learn her traditions and her ways. And it opened actually me up to know what my gifts are. I had no idea what I was capable of. Um, so yeah,
And seeing that transition kind of transpire in real time has been really cool, like as a friend.
no,
To
thank
be like,
you.
hey, I got invited to do this, or I got to do this. And um, I don't mean this in a microaggressive way. I think I can say it because I'm a woman of color. Of course, I'm not indigenous. Um, is that what I see, I guess, in my experience with trauma is like the difficulty of for people of color to take accountability for their own unconscious biases, right? And you've maybe unfortunately and willingly have taken that on to deprogram their mind about who you are based on what you look like. Right? That's a
Yes.
common experience for a lot of mixed individuals, especially like you're saying someone like yourself that looks white,
hmm
that
And
wouldn't
I've had
outwardly say
And
indigenous.
listen, I've had a lot of racist comments about me too, and I always take them on the chin because literally I've been told since I've grown up. My dad used to always say, "Brittany, you can't be any more indigenous than you are." And he's like, "But you are." And so you just have to navigate how you can and don't take anything personally because people do project things onto you. And because I'm a 3-5 projector, my number 5 is a lot of people do project onto me just naturally.
Heretics.
Yeah, so it's
Five
it's
one.
yeah, it's one of those things where just knowing that and holding space for that and being like you are completely entitled to feel how you feel right now. And a lot of people believe that I shouldn't be working on the reserve. But I have a passion. I'm there for a reason. I love the people. I love what I do, and I'm going to continue to stay there. But it was hard. It is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just keep showing up because I work out of my heart, man. So
And this is going to sound crass, but it's like you can't be performative within your own community.
no, and people know that. Like when people can see that you're being fake, right?
Yeah.
And people can see when you're being inauthentic and
Yes.
disingenuine. So I like, if I came across the wrong way, I would sure hear about it, right?
Mm.
Um,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. And it's the same thing in the Punjabi community, the diaspora as well, right? So I say that for my own culture and people in the Sikh religion, like your or way of life, you have to empower yourself beyond this narrative that you've
Yep.
implanted. Like if you want to have better, you want to be better, you want to have more rights, you want to have equity, you have to be willing to allow the change within the system, and that's just hard. One thing you said brought me back to a thought I had earlier when you were talking about you, I was saying exit stage right. You're talking about not needing a reason to
Mhm.
validate that intuitive nudge. That's huge in our human design. I always teach about emotional authorities with individuals that have them. You don't have to have an emotional authority to use this perspective, but it's just going to be stronger. That gut response, that feeling, that niggle, that, oh, I don't really know, is your body's way of telling you you're in danger in a way,
Yeah.
right? It's your instinctual response getting you out of something ahead of the physical possibly manifesting. And what we're taught is that we need to have the physical thing happen in order to make that decision,
Yeah,
right?
and one thing that I didn't know about, because I am an emotional projector, and one thing that I didn't
Oh,
know
okay.
about, which would have been so helpful in the past, was I used to act on my emotions immediately. Like, oh, I feel
Ah,
I feel this, and I'm gonna act. I was like that for most of my life until I got linked with
same.
a projector, and I got some guidance from him, and he said, no, Brittany, what you have to do is always sleep on it, so you, because what happens is you'll feel the emotion and you have to let it go down, so you sleep on it, and then the next morning you will have an awareness to like do it. Then like you
Yeah,
feel it, you let it sit, you sleep, and then you act or you make the decision. So that really
yeah.
helped for me.
No, I agree. Like just as someone that does human design readings, like I always say 2 to 3 days, sit down and process it. Like if it's not a fuck yes in the moment that you're making that decision, sleep on it. If you don't really know, that's okay. You may also change your mind. You may
Yes.
also not know why it's a no.
Yes.
You may have a fuck yes to something that maybe is usually a no, and then there's a reason and you find out later. Like the universe works in miraculous ways and it's always trying to protect us. Our instincts, our higher self are always trying to protect us, but we can't look at that 3D validation. And that's what I find a lot of people have difficulty with is reverting to the energetic side and being okay with that versus assuming, we're gonna have that knowing.
Yeah.
And it's an evolution. Like even if I coach on this, I still deal with it on a daily basis. Like this week I've been like, ugh. I'll tell you about it later, but
Yeah.
I've just been like, okay, like, body saying one thing, emotions are saying another thing. Um, what's really going on, and then when you allow the energy to integrate, you allow it to settle, you allow it to flow, you kind of get the answers, the confirmation, the insights that you wanted in that stillness. But we're always like looking to run, 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 run
Yeah.
as fast as we can.
Exactly. And like human design is such an eye-opening thing to do because you realize how you've been operating or navigating your life your entire life. Like human design is unreal. And then when I found out mine, a lot of people were projecting onto me like, why can't you stick with one thing? Like, why do you hop from one thing to another? Why are you all over the place? Why do you move every year? And then I found out I was a 3-5, which means I do everything through
Because
trial and error.
I'm an
It's like
experimenter.
I'm a life experimenter. So like that's literally my design. I do all these other things. I've had like 20 different jobs
Dude, bitches
because
stay in the same position for 25 years and wear it as a badge of
man,
honor.
I know. Like what do you learn? You're not learning
I'm so
anything.
great. I'm so great. And like we thought that was what we needed to do.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
those are the same people who don't take vacation or
No
sick days. Like,
offense. No,
yeah, no.
just the truth. It's just the truth.
Yeah.
I thought that's
Yeah.
what I wanted. Like I'm gonna be a lifer at the firm that I go to.
No, for sure. That's what a lot of people. But and here's the thing, some people are, and that's totally okay. But I think
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say is like respect everyone's different human design. Everyone is like has a different and very unique spot at the table. Not
Yeah.
everyone's life is going to look like your life.
And we're just here to fuck people's lives up.
Oh yeah. Well, we knew that already. I do that.
Wheel
I
of
come.
karma. I just see myself like going like this through people's lives.
Did you know someone told me that? One of my exes did say that they're like, Brittany, you're literally like everyone's karma. You just come in and you fuck up their life and then you just leave. And it's like,
Oh
but I
wow, the
don't
fact that
want
they can see that is interesting. I don't know which ex you're talking about. Put it in the chat.
yeah. Ah, I'm
Okay,
like,
no, I actually want to know. I have an
okay,
idea, but
okay. Can I actually put it in the chat?
Yeah, no one's gonna see it. I wonder if I'm right. Are my spidey senses right? Oh, that's not. I thought it was the other person that starts with that letter.
Oh,
I was like, that's a manipulation tactic on their part for
oh
sure.
yeah. That happened too. That actually the manipulation tactic happened too in like a different form.
Remember when they tried to convince you that I wasn't your friend?
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Fuck you!
a lot of people get really yeah, but it's you know the drill. It's just all like isolation stuff. A lot of people get really threatened by my friends and
Yeah,
try to
because
like,
oh,
you know.
sorry you don't have friends. Joking.
JK, LOL. JK.
The evolution of friends has been interesting. It's also realizing like who really has your back. You know when they say you probably seen on TikTok. I don't know if you seen it on Instagram. You're just back on TikTok now.
Yeah.
They talk about like the true friends that like support you, that will like your stuff, that will share your stuff, that will promote your stuff, that will show up for you. Like there's probably like only two or three out of the people 10. No, no, I don't want to say no offense. Like I notice guys because I already know the moment that shit pops off and the way that I know it's gonna pop off next year, they're gonna be the first in line.
Yeah.
They're gonna be the first in line to say, oh yeah, look at this, this is a person I know, or
Yeah.
friends, right, or family, for example. But when it comes to like the smaller things ahead of getting there, I'm watching. I'm really
Yeah.
watching who is there supporting me, who's checking in on these endeavors, who's giving me that reciprocal effort.
Yeah.
Because
And
when
it
the day comes and you want a backstage pass, I will be flipping you the bird.
no, for real. And as
But
you
that's
should
just how it
though.
is. And whatever that
No.
actually entails, right? Like, don't act as if you've been a cooperative component for me. Like, your lack of support has been hurtful.
Yeah. And I think it's sad when you realize like how many friends are there to kind of just like feed off your energy. It's like it's really hard when they want your a like reassurance or affirmation because they like your energy that you bring to the table,
Yeah.
but they're not willing to reciprocate that to you and like support you. That's what I'm really starting to notice within friendships because um I'm just noticing that there is a little bit of just like a not equal opportunity there.
And it's really meant to teach us how unique we are. As individuals, anybody could be that unique, right? Like you said, everybody has a spot at the table, a unique spot at the table.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to step in that empowered version of yourself, I'm sorry, you're gonna stay mid. Don't be
Yeah.
mad at me that I'm not mid.
Yeah.
Don't be mad at me
No,
that you
no, yeah.
can't be confident in your like your value of self. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like as
Yeah.
traumatized as I've fucking been the last couple of years, I mean, I let my light dim a little, but like that didn't get in the way of who I know I am. That didn't get in the way of who you know you are.
And you
And
just want to shake people and be like, you can be this too. You know
yeah,
that me being me isn't taking away from the fact that you can be you. You know that, right?
exactly.
Right? You can do the same thing. So don't hate on me because I'm doing this certain thing. Like you can literally do it.
And I'm not gonna keep on validating your mediocrity. Sorry.
No. Yeah.
For any like it's like there's a point in time where the old story gets exhausting. It's like you're honestly coming to me as a leech to try to get me to validate your old narrative you have. Like you're fucking wasting my time. Book a call. Book a call if you want. Book a fucking call. My time is money. My
No,
time
yes.
is money. Like if I can go through a divorce for the second time and pick myself the fuck up and
Yeah.
do all this shit and I'm not trying to compare, it's like your experience, no offense, is a ripple
Yes.
in your timeline.
Hmm.
Okay. I've also been there, so I'm giving you an example of how to get out or what to do. And some people can't. Some people's experience is not. And I'm I'm talking to you as a friend, not as I'm not talking to everybody as a coach right now, right? Like it's exhausting. It's just like people are like, why don't you want to go anywhere? Why don't you want to do anything? 'Cause it's just like when you achieve a certain vibration or you achieve a certain level of resonance within yourself or a certain level of assurance, like you can just date yourself and be Gucci. Like we're good just hanging out on our own. We prefer that. We prefer to be alone. There's a handful of people that I want to be around. consistently at least. And then, when you're watching like this facade play out in front of your face all the time, it's so jarring to your vibration. For me, I'm like, fuck, I need a week to recover from this event or this interaction because
Mhm.
the amount of energy it took me to keep up with the level of inauthenticity, and I can't say that out loud. I can. I've become okay with that. But in a room full of 200, if you're just one that feels that way, like explicitly knows, you're typically the outcast, right? Like, I'm
No,
just,
and the thing that's been projected onto me a lot lately is like, why do you want to be alone so much? Why don't you want to have more fun? Why aren't you, do you think you're wasting your life? I'm like,
fuck no.
what? I'm having the most
Oh my
fun
God, that comment.
because I'm not
Uh,
trying to be someone else anymore. I'm not trying to go out and drink and party. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with drinking. I'm not saying, but for me, it brings me to a lower vibration. Okay, it does. It
You,
makes
you
me
literally
anxious.
felt ill that day that you had one drink when we
No,
went out.
but
Like,
that's what I mean. I
yeah,
can't, and you can even say, you can attest to the fact that I can't even have one anymore. It does something to my body that is unexplainable at this point, so I just can't do it anymore.
yeah.
And but so yeah, I'm having a lot of those very interesting things. And I think it just puts into perspective how much I've grown. I used to be someone who couldn't even go to a function without having at least three drinks, right? Like
Hmm.
I've transformed my life in a way where I can no longer go back. Like once you're here, once you see everything, you can't just regress back into your old cycles and you can't. You're here now.
Yeah. I've cut down quite a bit as well. Like, I have a really high tolerance, but it's not even whether or not I get drunk or feel that buzz. It's what happens after. Like the 3 days after, where I'm like, fuck that. Like, first of all, like, you had X amount of drinks and you didn't even feel anything. And now you're gonna pay for it with this freaking headache because of the residual effects. What did you even get out of that? Right? It's just a momentary thing. So for me, I've found the scenarios where it's gonna work for me, or like the time of the day where I'd rather, like, I'd rather day drink than like drink at night and then go to bed and like face that stuff or like have my sleep impacted. But like watching the individuals that are still doing what they did 20 years ago, I'm like, how are you still partying that way? Like, how are you not sick of your shit? But it's like the more validation somebody needs, the more they're out in those ways as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Or and I have a lot of them too being like, what? You don't drink anymore, just have one more drink and let's go out. And I'm like, no, it's a hard no. We can go out for coffee though. I'd love to spend time with you. That's the thing. I'd love to spend time and I'd love to get a coffee, but these are the ways in which I can hang out. This is in what capacity you will have me in. You will not have me in the capacity that you had me in before because I am not the same person.
Mm-mm.
A lot of people will try to bring you back into the old Brit, into the old Remy, and the thing is like it's just not going to happen. And but you can either meet me where I'm at or we can just call it. We no one has to be friends forever, by the way. And like I think now when we're talking about how we even like we took what like a year and a half off of like not speaking because we had to go through our cycle again. We had to go through the cycle
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And then learn a lot about ourselves just to meet up, and that's not to say, and other friendships are like that too, man. Sometimes you have to go through life and experience life in order to come out on the other side and have a big debrief and be like, whoa, can you believe that we just went through that? And then continue on the friendship, right?
And like we know which friendships that's okay with.
Hmm.
Like I've had that in some friendships and I know, at least because like on the psychic intuitive side, I know why it's happened. Is that going
Yes.
to be something that I accept back into my life with the same energy? Probably not. You, that's a different story. Like you fall in the category of like, I know we had to go our separate ways for that while. But it's like in that moment, in those moments, well, A, would we have hid it from each other? Probably, maybe.
And also, would we have held each other accountable, or would we have just trauma bonded through that whole experience?
So,
Mm.
yeah, like one thing I saw on TikTok the other day, I don't know who the originating person is. I mean, I like the way it was said. It's something I teach, but I just like the way it was said. It's like our future version didn't choose to go through all the growth that she or they has chosen to go through to then shame the past version of ourselves for the decisions they made.
Yeah.
That's a tough one because when we've gone through a certain level of healing or a certain level of integration, a certain level of understanding the why and the how, looking back at ourselves is fucking cringe.
Yeah. No, it's so
So cringe.
cringy.
I'm like, bro,
No,
why did you do that? Why the
dude,
fuck
the
did you
things that I have
do
done, the things that I have done, and but I think lately I've just tried to really engage with self-forgiveness and knowing that
that?
the version of me then had to go through what she had to
Yeah,
go through to get to
100%.
the version of me now. But that doesn't take into account the low-key shame and the guilt that you feel for bringing yourself through the mud like that. But like you, man, you just there's no words sometimes, truthfully. I'm just like, holy fuck, Britt, you did that. You 100% did that. Like what I just did all last year, what I just did all last year to some loser. But then it's like, okay, well, Brittany, what did you learn from that? Like the self-reflection piece has to be there. I'm not, I
Too
make very
much.
poor decisions sometimes, and I'm very aware.
Yeah, I've gotten in trouble for that. I
was like, no, like I learned. I did 100%. But you know what was really hard for me, TBH, and like, I don't think my parents will ever listen to this podcast. Like, they've been so supportive. And I think for their generation, like, it's the most support that you could probably ask for, despite them going through a certain level of healing or reading my book or understanding intergenerational trauma. Like, we're that generation that's making that pivot, which is why it's so hard, right? But, um, what was my point? Oh, yeah. In the moments where I was trying to advocate for myself, the people pleasing is so strong in culture that I was the only one advocating for myself. You should never be in a relationship like that, ever, especially with someone that only really cares about how they're viewed and spending money to make themselves look good.
Yeah.
But like, that was like hard because I was like, fuck, I hate this. But then when your parents have an expectation of you to do something because they want to people please, then you're like, well, where do I draw the line, right? And
And do
naturally,
you,
I fell second. Like I wasn't even second. Like I was at the bottom of the fucking pit. Like
yeah.
there was no second. It was just like you're gonna do as you're told, not by my parents, but like that was a general energy around the situation where at the end of the day, I was just defeated. I was like, I can't even advocate for myself anymore. This is fucking exhausting. And the act of getting out of this dumpster fire I've put myself in is a lot more painful than the thought of just going through it at this point because my mental health was not good. I'd lost my cousin who was like a brother to me. I was making this career transition. I was like trying to heal from the layers and levels of abuse and like, moving. Like there were so many moving parts. And people were like, why didn't you leave at the first sign? I'm like, you have no idea like what was actually going on. Like that seemed like the only security for me in this transition that like I was just trying to make that work because on the inside and mentally like there was this Rubik's cube that just was not getting solved no matter how many ways I tried to do it. And I'm like, okay, I got this one side right, right? Let's continue to work on the rest rather than like throwing it out the window and starting all over again,
Yeah.
which I'm
And
so glad I've done. But yeah.
do you think it's too like another layer of that would be like the perception of everyone else? Like, do you feel like to a certain extent, like your parents were worried about other people's perception of your marriage and how that would have played out? Like, that's just additional stress.
I had so much stress. There was a lot of fear around me speaking up about it, but it kind of came on like the way I told my mom was unexpected. Like
I had come home for or like here to their house for an extra couple of days while I was facing some threats. I needed to get out of there. And then she had asked whether or not he cared that I was here. And I was like, why the fuck would he care when he just threatened to sell the house on me and throw my clothes on the street? Like, that's how I said it. And she was like, I'm sorry, what? And I was like, I can't hold it in anymore. I was like, I can't fucking hold it in. I don't give a shit about if he cares about where I'm at. I don't give a fucking shit. Right. And like, that's when I just started to like really put my power in. And that's when my mom was like dumbfounded. And that's when we told my dad. And like, she's like, your dad's going to be like shocked. Right. But like, it was met like when they saw and I read the messages and I read the threats, like I'm very lucky. I mean, even though every single person should have this, that their response was how I would respond to my child or how I would want to be respected or responded to. So in those moments, it was never actually from them once about what are people going to think about this if you decide to walk away. It was very much, we support your decision because he's going to ruin your life. And he did. He did. What would happen if I didn't walk away that day I walked away? Or at that moment I walked away?
Unimaginable. I don't
I
even
could
want to.
literally be dead,
No, that's, yeah,
right?
exactly.
So
Yep.
like, and people don't know the full capacity, but like that's what was going through my mind. I'm like, I either walk away and call the cops right now, or if I get my face smashed in, like this could be the end of everything for me. Like I was just stuck in that survival mode, right?
Mhm.
And I was told to leave sooner than I left by my family. And now when I look back, I'm like, holy shit, like they had to watch me go through the struggle of making that decision, but trying every possible thing. Like I tried every single avenue, every single resource, like, you know, and you're one that has said this, and other friends are like, you literally did absolutely more than you needed to and everything possible. So by the time I made that decision, like I had completely wrung out the towel and I was like, you know what? No. And then finding out that somebody has lied to you to such a degree or lied about what the counselor has said, like it doesn't really give you any sort of solid ground to be able to even rebuild trust because I had confirmed with the counselor that things that I was told the counselor said were a lie, right? So it's like you can't sit there and question every single word coming out of somebody's mouth. And that's what was happening. Like I just had zero trust or faith in what I was hearing. And like that's no person that you want to be a father of your children. That's no person that's going to be a partner. I was living my own life with the lack of support, holding onto this backpack with like a boulder in it. And you know, just like every single day a new rock was put in it. It just became heavier and heavier. Um, and now of course my parents, they have to tell people. They don't really tell people details, but they also know I'm very vocal. They haven't stopped me regarding that. They under My dad more so understands my purpose, and me being vocal in that way. My mom is still kind of stuck in her shell a little, which I think is completely normal and fair. But now, you know, there have been some discussions or aggravations around having to address the fact that it's happened a second time because even though they know both times it was not my fault and even though they know the first time my ex took accountability for it and said that I'm not I'm not meant to be a traditional husband, right? And he's not. So like that's fine, right? Now for him like they were able to hear it, but naturally the finger gets pointed at their daughter or their household, which is why I think my story is so important because that's what happens to so many brown women out there, especially if, you know, they're educated, they have the resources, they have a well-respected family, they have a family that's vocal, they have a family that's, you know, an advocate for them, they have self-respect. Like that's a cultural thing, right? Women were taught and programmed to believe that they are less than. So when you have done the healing, you've done the work, and you have a family that knows that you're not, that knows how much work you've put in to get to where you are, that have helped you get to where you are with your education, that have seen you graduate 3 times after high school, that have seen you put the fucking work in, right? Like when you are met with opposition that has no respect for you It's really hard to explain that to a culture that is just programmed to believe that this is the way it is. I think, for them, there has been a difficulty and probably a longer conversation to have, but it's like, I just said to them, like, how many times are we going to have this convo? But like, I don't know. Not in a way of shame, right? Or guilt. It's just like, they see me doing well and they're happy about it.
Yeah. So where are you now in terms of, right after you've had two marriages, where are you now when it comes to relationships and how you want to like
Yeah.
engage in it? What's your,
I wouldn't call them marriages, call them
okay.
lessons. I've never been married, despite what the papers may say, because I've never had a husband. I've been a fucking babysitter, right?
Mhm.
I've been a tolerator.
That's fair.
So I've never been married, really. Um, Moving forward, I'm really excited, and like also don't care to have a paper ever again. I've made that very clear to I told my grandma the other day, my parents know, like, I do not care about a piece of fucking paper. It doesn't mean anything to me,
Yeah.
right? I need a partner. I have the same rights. We have the same whatever, like whatever. If the person wants that, great. I don't care to do the whole thing. But like I said, like I've really started to lean into my feminine energy that way. And it's nice to have that because I'm now seeing like very clearly on this projection screen of like the sort of man I need to support me because it takes a very strong man
Yes.
next to me, and I know that. It's like we're very alpha women. It's like if you cannot dominate me,
Yeah.
like
No.
that's how I feel at this point. Like if I can't look at you and be like, ooh,
In a good way? Or like, yeah,
fucking put me in my place. Like tell me to shut the fuck up and sit down.
Yeah.
Not in like a toxic way, right? But like if you don't if you can't do that respectfully and you're doing that out of violence or aggravation, that's a different story. If you're doing that respectfully, like, babe, I told you I got this, sit down, that's what I need. And like,
Yes.
that's just not what I've allowed in my life. Maybe a couple of times, right? Like in those 5 years. A lot of that was just kind of working through the trauma of past relationships, a lot of abuse, like abuse with men started when I was in high school. So, then I went through a period of like finding myself. It's like I always have really good self-esteem up until the red flags start, and then I try to fix it. And I need to stop doing that. I think that just comes from being bullied growing up, um, not by friends, by family, and just wanting to be seen and felt and understood. And my platform actually gives me a lot of empowerment in that way because I show up the most authentic on my platform than I do even in person. A part of the reason being is because people can only well, a lot of times in your friends and family circles, people perceive you as the version of you they met. They don't
Yep.
see you as a growth version, right? So I have a lot more support. 99% of my support comes from people I've never met before. Like coming back to the fact of like who are the people that are actually going to be there during these beginning stages of what I know is yet to come. And if people meet me later in life, they're stepping into, we know who she is right now. We're stepping into the RKH. We're not stepping into Rami, the 5 year old's life. We're stepping into a 33-year-old life with this platform and what she does and who we've gotten to know organically. And I think that's really intimidating for a lot of men. So if you
It
don't
is.
have security in what you do and who you are as a person, and you don't have a level of flexibility in the fact that this empire it grows by the day, and you don't respect me for that,
Mhm.
fuck down. And
And I
just
think
tell me,
there
just
I
tell me just tell
no.
me you can't handle it.
No, and that's but here's the thing. I think part of it is like men need to become, if they want to, more aware of their own insecurities because that is the thing that tries to tear the feminine down, right? A lot of feminine energies are going to rise in the next couple years, and it's going to make men spiral because we are not going to be the secondary anymore. We're not going to be kind of like the doting, like we all have our own power, and because we're stepping into it, it's making them feel like they can't own us anymore. We come from a paradigm where women are owned, they're property, they can't work, they don't have the rights, they don't have rights. So, but now we do. And I think just like you said, a man needs to match that energy, not to own it, or pedestalize. I get a lot of men pedestalizing me, but then tearing me down once they get me. And there's a lot
100%.
of like putting me in a cage or putting me in a box kind of thing. And it's like, listen, like if you want like if you don't want me to succeed in what I know I'm good at, I'm not going to just orbit you. A lot of men want to be orbited by women because they need that. They need that reassurance to build up their confidence. But it's like you need to build up your own confidence, and then I need to have my own confidence. And like, let's work together, having like us independent and confident, and let's like conquer what we need to conquer in that way while supporting each other. It's not like this eating, like cannibalism, like I don't like why.
Yeah, it's like, are you empowering me and enhancing my light, or are you just around here because you like my confidence? You think that that's going to somehow make you have confidence? Like, no, you need to be confident ahead of coming to the table in what you have to provide.
Yeah, and a lot of men can't handle how independent you are either. It's like this need to be needed, like they need to be needed, but rather than figuring out how they can fit into your life and be needed, they want to be needed in the ways that they want to be needed. But it's like, but if you actually learn to love someone, then you and love yourself, right? Then you can work together in finding out the ways that you need to be needed. Like
Yeah,
men are needed, right? They are.
100%.
But the thing is they're doing it in all the wrong ways where it's like it's so icky, and I'm so put off because I can see when you want to dominate me and not in a healthy way. I can see when you just want to have sex with me. I can see that, I can see when you're not authentically trying to get to know me.
Women need to stop having sex with men that are not empowered.
Yes, because
And they
they
don't like
are
to hear that, but you
they,
need to stop giving
no.
your energy and this portal exchange away to men
Yes.
that are insecure because they just give you that insecurity through insertion. Pardon my language, but
Yes.
that's just what happens.
And there is such thing as sex rituals, which will be a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
There is such thing as manifesting through sexual energy. And the
Yes,
thing is,
yes, the O
is
method.
yeah, and women have so much power and so much creative energy through their womb, and we are just giving it away.
Yeah.
Giving it away, and the men are using it. They use it to their own advantage so then they can create. And they can, because they can't create on their own without the feminine. That is what we are like. They know that they need us.
Yeah.
So, how are we going to set the bar higher for ourselves?
By following through and everything we're saying.
Literally.
It's hard. It honestly, like I said, I'll snap you later. Like this week has been like, dang.
Yeah. And just so
I'm like,
every yeah.
you're doing it. But I've had to like talk to a couple other friends on this in the spiritual world of like, okay, like how do I remain grounded right now? Because
Mhm.
this overthinking is like not helping me out. Or like just my trying to micromanage everything, not helping me out. Me trying to like be hyper independent right now, not helping me out.
Let's talk about like, okay, so when you're healing, listen, but I'm late to the game. I know that you've already been here for quite some time,
Oh,
but like, can we talk about the fact that the dopamine hits just stop dopamine hitting? Like all the old dopamine hits that you used to get. Like, listen, I'll be honest. I
yeah.
used to get I used to get tons of dopamine from male attention. Tons, like tons, tons, tons. It used to like give me energy for days. Like retail therapy was one. Well, engaging in like alcohol and substance use and what else? Just like things that used to give you energy. And then, but now that you're healing, you're like, fuck, like I have to find new ways
Yeah.
because it's not,
One thing I want to add to the dopamine conversation here is, well, narcissists seek out chaos because the recovery of the chaos gives them dopamine. So
Mm.
when we're unhealed and we have that mirror projection, we are okay engaging with that because it makes us feel something,
Yes.
right? So when we start to heal that, we realize that's not safe, which is why a lot of people are like, I don't want to be bored in a relationship because a lot of boredom is actually safety, it's
Y-
peace.
Yes.
Right? They're like, we need this, we need that, we need this fire. But sure, of course, you need that. You need the fire, you need the spark, you need the inspiration. But true safety and security in a relationship is peace and boredom. And when you're dealing with a lot of trauma and you're healing with that, you're used to this wave. You can still get that dopamine from, oh, you've seen your partner after a week, maybe, or you have a really good interaction physically, or you're going on a trip together and you're really excited,
Uh,
right? Those are natural great ways to have that dopamine hit or
yeah.
release, right? But when you're seeking that out of the recovery from chaos, it's dangerous, right? So even while all those things are not working anymore, the drinking or let's say drugs or whatever, right? The attention, it's okay, well, how do I feel that spark again? A part of that is like continuing to maintain a raised vibration, continuing to maintain love within ourselves. And what I love, or how I love to get a dopamine hit, is by having a really good conversation. Like, dude, am I stimulated in my head right now?
Yeah.
Because, like, for me, like, men don't realize, like, the level of EQ an empowered woman requires to be mentally stimulated. I
Mhm.
don't know if you've watched that video or on Netflix, the docuseries, what's it called? Basically, it's about women's orgasm and sex and health. And so I've never talked about any of these topics on here, I think, because I'm brown, but the conversation was around how much mental stimulation women need to be attracted to the male partner, especially a partner that they have like an expectation from or like a relationship with, right?
And
Whereas
that's
men are like primal beings a lot of the time, and it's not like they don't care about that side. They definitely do. But that's like when a woman is empowered in her divine feminine, that is her top priority. Her second priority is the physical part of it. The first priority is, am I feeling close enough to you mentally, emotionally, spiritually in order to get to that step.
and I love that you brought that up because that actually gives me perspective on where I am because I used to be very lustful, right?
Yes.
And yeah, and that's what my connections were mostly based on, right?
Yeah.
But now that I've been healing through that, I'm like, no, man, like if I can't have like a deep connection or conversation with you, then it's a no for me. And so I'm happy that you said that because that's what I've been experiencing lately. We're going from lust into more of a I want to bond. I want to be intellectually stimulated.
And the longevity of that connection, what a lot of my, not a lot of my clients, what some of my clients really struggle with, and I think just as a collective, a lot of women struggle with, is putting a priority on the emotional connection. Because if it's not there, you don't have a relationship, like, period. You do not have one.
No,
And a
you
lot
don't.
of women are going to go to option B of let's have that physical connection because automatically the man's going to want to do that. I don't want to, I'm not trying to generalize, but it's just on the ratio of the scale, that's how it is, right? For a man that's not as empowered as a woman. Usually the woman leads that space, or you need a man that's at least getting there and understands the importance of that. And a lot of men do, and a lot of men are starting to. But my client, some of them just can't keep their legs closed. And they're asking me, you guys are watching this, and I'm sorry, and we've already had these conversations. Like, you're asking me the question about why things are not moving in your life, and you have not decided to prioritize your emotional and spiritual connection within yourself, as well as the requirement in the relationship. Because what happens if you get sick? What happens if 6 weeks after you get birth, if you are actually cleared to have that physical intimacy after 6 weeks? What happens if there's this traumatic life event that puts you in depression and you don't feel that? That's a complete suppressor because your cortisol goes up, your libido goes down. So,
Mhm.
what partner do you have in that moment that is empowering you? Or are they disempowering you because they're so used to option B that now that that's completely taken off the table because you're not functioning normally, your nervous system is shot, you have no emotional connection to them to be able to even express this. And people will just completely bypass that in order to get to option B, assuming that that's going to bring them closer. And it's not. It's harder to be strict with that emotional, spiritual, mental space for a lot of women. Like,
Hmm.
yeah.
And it brings us back to the Bashar video I sent you the other day, which is like when you become aware of your tendencies, when you
It's not a
become
tent.
aware
Yeah.
of your cycles, it becomes a choice. It becomes like, okay, so now that you're aware that you're behaving in this way, are you going to choose to do it again? Like because there is a lot. I know we can talk shit all the time, right? But at the end of the day, we are responsible for our choices, regardless of what happens to us. We have chosen to enter the reality that we have experienced.
Yeah.
So it's like we have to take accountability for the choices that we have made, that you have made, um, and own it, right? Like there's no shame in the game, man. We're
No.
we're we're in a matrix where it is a game, dude. We are like choosing to enter these experiences to learn something for our soul. So like what are you going to choose next? What
Yeah.
what kind of adventure are you going to choose next? Is it going to be to experience something that you should have like that you've already experienced, or are you going to take the risk? Are you going to love yourself and do something different next time? Like what kind of different experience are do you want to have with your life?
1000%. And like that, now being at the space of doing that in the 3D world, like it's not easy. Like we can, like I do a lot of self-talk, right? I'll do a lot of meditating. I do a lot of reflection. But when that first moment comes to act in the new energy, it could feel completely debilitating. Because you're like,
Yeah.
fuck, 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 fuck. I'm doing something that is so, um, well, even just in the way that you perceive it, not even
Yeah.
necessarily the action you're going to take. It's what do I think this means? Right? What narrative am I giving myself, or am I going to get back into the place of empowering myself through the actions I'm taking, through the ways in which I perceive it, through understanding, through patience, through tolerance, and or not filling it with another lustful thing. And lustful things can also be drinking, drugs, food, shopping, right? Greed in any sort of way, not just necessarily a man or a woman.
Yep.
It's, what in what other ways do I get that, receive that, achieve that? And we are, as a whole society, getting to that point of understanding it. And one key component in this shift right now that we're going through with the awakening, great awakening, is the spirit babies that are coming in now have zero tolerance for the bullshit that we built.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. Like when comes to some of my clients that, have had a hard time conceiving, I'm like, it's pretty clear. You're allowing in this old paradigm to control you. And my clients that have successfully gotten pregnant, it's, speaking to me about how hard deprogramming themselves was ahead of them achieving that, because our babies, whether they're here as a soul or whether they are here physically, are going to be our guides, right?
Yes.
And they are actually like, put your money where your mouth is. Like, you hate this whole experience you're living, and I'm not coming until you have a good grip on it.
Yeah, and I've been told multiple times that mine is just waiting. And apparently she's really they are really sassy and they said you're not gonna get rid of me this time because I did unfortunately have an abortion when I was 17 and it was so
Mm,
the same spirit baby is waiting and they're like, "Well,
yeah.
you're not gonna get rid of me this time, bitch. Like
Yeah,
I'm
you've
coming
already
in.
learned your lesson.
I've already learned." But also it's
Not
like
lesson, but like you know what that was meant to teach you at that
yes,
point.
yes.
Yeah.
And then it's funny that you say this because the other day I was sitting in the elevator and I'm like, you know what? Show me then who you want your dad to be. You know what?
Straight up.
Because I don't know. I obviously don't know. So you have to you guide me, help guide me into who you want your dad to be, and then that's fine. So
Yeah.
I've been having conversations. We've been talking.
Oh, I love that. Yay, that's good. Mine
It's
have been like really excited this week when I'm checking in on them.
What was actually really hard for me,
maybe it's been about a year now, is watching them go away. Oh, it was so hard. Like, eek. Like watching them because I just have such a divine connection with them. They're named. I know their genders if they choose to still come that way, which I think they will. Sometimes they change their order. Um, but for them to say, fuck this, mom, and fly away and say, we're not safe.
Mm,
I was like, shit, can we get you back? And like, it
yeah.
took a while to have them start coming back. But because, like I said, I have that connection and I knew what it was to have the connection with them and not, and like they kick, like I can feel them in my womb. And I
Mm,
know that's when they're really close. I'm like, crap. And they're like, this is not it. Like, this is not it. And, but yeah, to see them like this week, they're dancing around. Like, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? They're like, they're just like vibing. I'm like, okay, okay. I like that you're, happy with where mom's at, um, and the trajectory. And that comes down to like my values as well as having a conversation with my niece the other day, when I went to Japan with, and we were talking about values and what I want. And like, she was like, what if like the man doesn't want the same number of kids as you? I'm like, that is a hard no. I'm like, these kids have waited a decade. I did not expect to be without child at 33. Honestly, I expected to have all my kids by now. And they have waited patiently. But there's absolutely no way that I'm saying one of you has to choose a new parent. And like that's going to be on me to ensure um, that I manage that,
yeah.
that I fulfill that in choosing the right person that wants to be a part of that scenario. It's not like I want 10 kids, right? But it's like some people
Yeah.
don't want kids, some people want one. Like I'm very adamant on what that looks like. And every single one of our spirit babies on this planet has a purpose,
Mm,
right? They help us fulfill our purpose in a new way. They help us learn something new. They teach us. And like I was saying, they don't fuck around. Like they don't fuck around. And people have a hard time understanding how their roles have played a really big impact in their timing. Because it's easy to get into victim mentality and mindset and to go and look for all the answers external from you. But what I do is like, let's sit down.
mm,
Like, let's sit down and talk about the reasons why. And lo and behold, there's a laundry list of things that are not matching up in their life, and they expect that the child's just going to come in. And I'm like, they don't do that. We did that because we still had things to go through. We still had lessons to learn. We still had past life karma. We still had expectations. But
And that's the thing, like
like, we're here to party.
the babies choose us, right? And I think we can just try to take the most responsibility within our own lives and our own healing so then we can break the cycles before they get here, right? Like, and I think that we've done that. I think this year has really closed out a huge thing for us, right? And heading into the new
100%.
time, I just think that the age of Aquarius is going to be so good to us.
Oh, it already has been.
Already,
I have no hair to whip.
no, yeah, all my hair
Fucking hair.
came back after it was all falling out.
It is looking thicker. It's
Yeah,
looking great. I love the color.
thank you so much.
Can't wait to dye my hair that color. Once we get rid of this red, it's going to be a process.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be a process.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to head
But
to work now.
yeah, I do too. As I log off to my client. I am so happy that I got to have you on here. Thank you for joining me and definitely got to do this again soon.
Yes, I'm so thankful. Thank you for your time and your energy, and I love you so much.
I
Like,
love you.
literally love you.
Love you. I will talk to you on Snap. Oh yeah, I'll send you Snap right after this.
Yeah.
Okay, bye babes. Have a good day at work.
Bye.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me on the RKH podcast. If you would like to follow along, make sure you're doing so below. You can leave a review if this was a helpful video for you so I can reach more people like yourself. And yeah, therkh.com if you want to work with me, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye.